Cool. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about what to do when you notice or when you see or think that your progress is starting to stall and how to recognize it as well. So the reality is when you're on a fitness journey, when you're working towards a fitness goal, at times you might fall off track. That's completely normal. You'll also recognize that your progress is not always going to be linear, but particularly as women, like if you're looking at anything like scales as a metric, you'll find the line goes up and down, all the way to where you want to get to. But ultimately, the reality is progress isn't always linear. Life gets busy, and sometimes you're going to have really high levels of energy and motivation, and then other times you're going to have lower levels. Sometimes you're going to be really good at being disciplined. Sometimes you're going to struggle with the discipline side of things. But the key isn't like about slipping up. It's about recognizing it earlier. So once you're able to pick up on these things, like when you recognize that you're starting to fall off track, perhaps you're starting to loosen the reins a little bit, and you're noticing the chocolate creeping in here and there, and like a bite of cake, or you're noticing that the control you used to have over your diet, the control you used to have over what you were consuming, has started to slip a little bit. And I think it's all about being honest with yourself, and it's about recognizing it, picking up on quickly, and then, as I always say, it's not about you falling off. It's about how quickly you can get yourself back on. Because ultimately, the time you dwell and get frustrated on yourself about falling off, that is the time, the longer you take to get back on, that's the time where we find more habits start creeping in. So I thought I'd run through 5 signs that show you that perhaps um, you need to tweak something in your training, in your eating, because if you get to the point where you're finding your progress has stalled, might mean that your measurements around your waist or around your hips aren't dropping, and they've been quite consistent for, let's say, like 3, 4 weeks. You're doing the same thing, but no progress is really happening. Um, and you'll find that your strength hasn't moved. So you've been using the same weights and you just don't feel anything is really happening. And you'll also find that when your fitness hasn't really progressed. So your progress is starting to plateau, your weights are the same, your metrics are starting the same, you kind of just feel a bit samey. Number 2, sign that you need to tweak something is when your motivation or your discipline has started to drop. Now, I always say that don't rely on motivation, because motivation is a mood. It's going to come and it's going to go, and it's not a reliable source. It does help you to get up and run in, and it does help you to someone is to get to the gym, but ultimately it's not a tool to be relied on. But if you do notice your motivation has started to dip, or more importantly, your discipline has dropped, perhaps you're starting to skip sessions, or perhaps you're doing your workout, but you're getting to the point where you're actually like, you know what, I'm just going to miss the ab section at the end, or I'm just going to miss the last rep of these. Do you know what? I've done 10 reps out of the 12 reps. That's okay. My legs are burning. That's okay. When you start feeling like that, and when you start recognizing these things, you need to start to realign yourself, because this is a telltale sign that something is a little bit off. Another sign would be, so you're finding your workouts easier than you used to. Perhaps you were, let's say, squatting with a 20 kilo barbell, and now that barbell that you're using is starting to feel a little bit easier. You used to struggle to get to 10 reps with it, with maybe 1 or 2 reps left over, but now you're getting to the stage where you're squatting it and you probably got about 3, 4 reps left in the tank. So you're finishing your sets quite comfortably, and you're not pushing close to fatigue. And perhaps you're getting to the point of where we have the RIR or RPE on the program. Perhaps you're kind of avoiding that. You're just not recognizing it. You're thinking, do you know what? That RIR says you got 3 reps left. And you're a bit like, nah, maybe I've got 3. I might have about 4 or 5. But ultimately, if somebody was standing there next to you and trying to push you, if you were able to get more than that, and you're not being honest with yourself. So it's a matter of being honest and recognizing if your workouts are feeling too easy, or if maybe, do you know what, you could tweak you could tweak your weights. Maybe you could go up in your weights because you're not pushing close to fatigue. Another sign might be your lifestyle habits are starting to slip. And this is a really, really easy one to slip, I think. And it's really hard one to pick up on. Like, so your steps. Perhaps you're like one day, you're like, oh, do you know what? It's been raining outside. I'll get more steps in tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, you're like, oh, still raining. I'll do it again tomorrow. And whilst you might only be 1,000 steps down on one day, maybe 1,500 on another day, they all add up and they all compile. And by the end of the week, you might be down like 6,000 steps. Whereas the previous week, you might have been hitting those additional 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 steps. That's quite a considerable difference per day if you're taking away, say, 1,000 steps a day. So it's little things like this that are creeping in, and you're being a bit softer on yourself. And don't get me wrong, like sometimes that happens and it's okay, but like I say, it's about recognizing it. Well, you also might find that perhaps your sleep is not as good as it used to be. Like I truly believe sleep is something that is quite out of our control, particularly if you've got hectic jobs, if you've got kids. Like it's not always something that's in our control. Or maybe your nutrition has started to drop a little bit, or you're not quite as consistent as you were. Maybe you're good at breakfast and lunch, and then it comes to dinner time, you're having a reasonably healthy dinner, and then afterwards you're like, I'll just have one square of chocolate, or you'll just have one of something. And then slowly, before you know it, those habits are starting to creep in a little bit. And you could just because you're letting the sides down a little bit. And it's so much easier once you let those barriers down for things to creep more and more to creep in. The fifth one, signs that something might need tweaking, is if your training is feeling harder than normal. So it's not only if you're not training heavy enough, perhaps if you're getting too fatigued as well. This, if you're getting too fatigued or you're getting too sore, maybe you're feeling drained, and maybe this in itself is a sign that you might need to step back a little bit. So when you notice this, if you notice any of these things, the first thing you need to do is pause and ask yourself this, like, where am I losing it in the chain? What of those areas do you think that perhaps you're not doing quite as tightly as you used to? You're not being quite as disciplined on those areas. Is it maybe your training intensity? Do you think that maybe you're not pushing quite as hard as you used to? Maybe you could actually increase your weight and, you know, you could go up the next notch, but it feels painful in your legs, feels hard, like feels hard in your muscles. So you're a bit, do you know what? Don't fancy it today. Perhaps it's a matter of, you're squatting and you're not squatting as low as you used to because, well, yeah, it burns. Your legs burn, right? So maybe you're kind of giving yourself a little bit of slack because you're too not fancying that feeling of being fatigued or your muscles being fatigued. So you're just not pushing yourself far enough. Perhaps it's that you're not clearly recognizing or reading the like reps and the how hard you need to be pushing yourself, the RII and the RPE. Perhaps it's that element of it. Perhaps it's that you kind of like maybe like I say, your nutrition used to be really good. You were really focused on hitting your calories and your protein, but now all of a sudden, when you're getting the, let's say, 80, 90 grams of protein a day, again, it started to slip. Maybe you're just on 60, but thinking 60 is quite a good amount. So at least I'm getting 60. But ultimately, if you want to be getting these results, if you want to see these results, you got to tighten up sometimes. I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes you need to focus and know when you need to tighten the reins a little bit, particularly around lifestyle habits. When we find that when seasons are starting to change, like now the sun's coming out, we feel a bit happier. We feel like, oh, do you know what? We have a little bit more niceties. And you might feel that, you know what, an extra glass of wine might creep in here and there. Maybe you've got a few more social events. Maybe you're going out for dinner a little bit more. So what used to be over the winter was a little bit stricter. You're kind of loosening up a little bit as we head into spring and the sun comes out too. So what you need to do is, once you've identified where that weaker link is across your training, it's like everything. Once you know where you're falling off, where you're slipping up, it's easier to fix because we know where to tighten the reins. But until you do that analysis of where things might be slipping, then you don't know. But once you know, we can put measures in place to fix it. So we're going to run through 7 ways of how you can get back on track when you recognize that your progress is slipping a little bit. Let's run through training. First of all, you need to recognize and analyze the issue. You need to be honest about what's slipping up and talk to me so that we can adjust things. I can help you, I can help support you, whether it's like you want me to run through your food log, see where perhaps things might be tipping you over and how we can pull that back, how we can increase your protein to match your calories. Like, it's about being honest, and it's about when it comes down to, let's say, reporting on your food, making sure you're giving that accurately as well. You're not missing off that handful of crisps that you had or that extra square of chocolate. It all needs to be recognized and inputted. Number two, like I say, your training intensity. If you recognize that perhaps you're not pushing yourself as hard as you could do with your training, perhaps your form isn't as good, you need to start reading the why is that so hard to say? RIR, so reps in reverse. So how many reps that you should have left at the end of each set. And being honest with yourself and pushing yourself to that level. Checking that you are close to failure when you're performing your reps, like, so you have got the right amount left, because that's what's actually guiding your body and progressively overloading your muscles. And the more you're progressively overloading, your muscles going to get little tears in them, and that's when they're going to grow and build. And the more muscle mass we have, the more calories we burn, even at resting. So is it that you are training as intensely as you can? Do you need to push yourself a bit harder, or are you holding yourself back? Number three, is it time to progress your weights? So if you think, as I said before, if you think that you've got a little bit more wiggle room, perhaps you've been coasting a little bit. Perhaps you need to, I would challenge you to increase your weights by, let's say, 1 kilo. For you ladies that are working at home, I know it's not as easy to just get another set of dumbbells, but I can promise you, if you buy a set of dumbbells higher than the ones you're using, you're going to progress quicker, because they'll be there for you to use, and you can just be like, do you know what? Today, I'm going to try doing just a couple of reps with my higher weights, and then you can drop down to into your regular weights. And the more you're doing that, the more your body's going to get used to using those heavy weights, because you're going to build more muscle. And you're going to progress up the weights a little bit quicker. So I would challenge you, buy an extra set of dumbbells up from what you're currently using, so that you've got that clear route to progression when you need to, when you want to. Number four, focus on your form. Like squats, if you're only squatting down to like here, you're not getting the full range of motion, therefore you're not working all of the muscle groups. So that in itself, if you're not working all of the muscle groups, you're not going to maximize your results. If you're just squatting to a point of where you think, oh, that hurts a bit there, let's just come up, or you're whizzing through those reps, you need to focus on your technique, making sure that you're like bicep curl, hammer curl, you're going to do the full range of motion and come down. You're not just going from here to here to here to here. You want to go the full range of motion. Same with your squats, making sure you're squatting low enough as well. It's the same with all workouts. Make sure you're maximizing your rep. I did do 4. Let's go on to lifestyle. Like I said previously, recognizing if your steps are slipped. If you are able to cross-reference your steps with your daily step count, see how you're getting on with that. If I would challenge you, if you feel like your progress is starting to slip, add in an extra 1,000 steps a day if you can, or where you can. Even if you do it a couple of times a week to take you above your step count goal, like, let's increase the goal. Likewise, if your steps have slipped and you're not hitting your goal, aim to hit your goal. If you're hitting your goal, let's increase it by a little bit. Let's nudge that up a little bit so you'll challenge yourself a little bit more, because if you're not challenging your body, you're not going to really get the results that you want to see, because your body's finding it easy. if you're hitting your number six, if you're hitting your protein and calorie targets consistently, some days you might be doing better than others, and that's okay if it all levels out to a level playing field. If it's all averages out, that's absolutely fine. But if you're finding that your calories, you're getting that Friday feeling, you get to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and your calories are jumping up really high. I'm not talking about a one weekend off weekend. That's fine. I'm talking about if it's kind of creeping in. I've noticed in my schedule, my calendar, that I've got a lot more events going on over the next few weeks. Like I've had birthday parties all through January, loads of them, but like more social situations where more alcohol is involved, or maybe eating out, or maybe takeaways. But it's about making sure that they don't run away with themselves. So if you're not hitting your calorie goals, you need to be reining that in a little bit and making sure that you're regaining that consistency. And number seven, something that we frequently forget, but it's super duper, it's super important. How is your sleep and recovery? Sometimes the solution to you getting your progress to move is actually you going to bed an hour earlier. You getting better quality sleep, trying to get less broken sleep where possible. Sometimes, like I say, we can't always like improve how many hours of sleep we're getting, especially if we're getting broken sleep or we've got kids. But ultimately, the first thing I would say is, can you go to bed an hour earlier? Do you really need to watch that extra episode of Bridgerton or whatever it is you're watching? Could you bring your bedtime an hour earlier? Could you bring your bedtime a little bit, even a little bit more early than that, and read for half an hour before bed? So you've got a good half an hour to an hour without any screen time while your brain switches off. That in itself is going to improve the quality of your sleep. Can you make sure the lights in your house are dimmed down? Making sure the lights dim down in your house is so much better for your circadian rhythm. Also, as I always say, I can't eat them. Two kiwis an hour before bed. Give it a try. But you can't necessarily, we can't, like I say, sleep is a little bit out of our control sometimes. But just doing what you can to improve the quality of your sleep, like stop drinking caffeine by midday. Try not to drink too much caffeine. And recovery, making sure you're giving your body ample rest between reps and sets and like your workouts. And most importantly, when it comes to your deload week, make sure you're actually using it as a deload week as well. So giving your body needs that time to repair and recover so you can go in stronger. So when to question, like, does your body need a rest? Sometimes progress stalls because your body needs to recover. It can't physically do anymore. It's exhausted, it's tired. It just can't make that progression anymore. So two options that can really help that are your deload weeks. So where you're reducing your intensity or the volume to allow recovery, or diet break. So some of you will have been on diets or being mindful of your eating for quite some time. You might have been in a calorie deficit. What I would say is, if you are struggling with staying on track with your food, if you're struggling to have the mindset of, I've got to eat in a calorie deficit, take some time off. Increase your calories up to maintenance for, say, 2 to 4 weeks. This is going to really restore your energy, and that in turn is going to help your performance. You probably won't lose weight during those 2 to 4 weeks, and that's something that you've got to accept. But in the long run, it could be exactly what's needed to start shifting a plateau, start getting the scales moving, start getting your metrics going down, because our body just needs that break. And sometimes it can become adapted to that lower amount of calories. So that's why as well it might not be moving. It's used to running off those lower levels of calories. So you having a rest, you having a break, you having a diet break are actually strategic tools to you making more progress. It's not a setback. So just to run through it in summary, anything like plateaus are normal. In actual fact, they're a really good sign because it means that your body's getting fitter and stronger and it's adapting to the resistance you're putting it under from your workouts. It's adapting to having a higher step count. It's performing at a higher level. So it's a good thing. the main focus is you becoming more aware of when this happens and you making those adjustments as quickly as possible and you tweaking your program, you recognizing and being honest with yourself if you feel like your barriers have slipped a little bit. It's about drawing them back up and back in, or recognizing that it's time to have a bit more of a rest. If your deload week hasn't cut it, maybe we need to increase your calories a little bit more. Recognize it, communicate it to me as well. I always am watching your progress anyhow, but if you're feeling in yourself, if you've got any questions about your progress, or if you feel like you're plateauing, talk to me and we can adjust it, because sometimes you guys might feel like you're plateauing, but actually it's so normal for your body to go through a phase of not really changing. And when you zoom out of your gut grafts, the actual line that you're taking is going down, but you're so focused on the day to day, the week to week, that you will see maybe there's 3 weeks where perhaps your metrics haven't moved. That's not to say you're not losing weight, because you might be losing weight off your face, you might be losing weight off your legs. It might not just be that specific part of your body. So that's why when it comes to about 3 weeks maybe if your metrics not moving, I'm not so worried, because a lot of the time they are still moving just from other places and it's really normal. But I will always try and pick up on any plateaus as we're going through and amend and adapt accordingly. That's why your programs are always, so you'll notice that you'll have different rep ranges, you'll have different RPEs, different RIRs, and you'll have different rest times, because we're progressively overloading your body to make sure that we keep your body moving. And then we have our deloads as well. But if you have any questions on any of it, then give me a shout. And one question I want you to ask yourself right now is, right now, where do you think your weakest link might be within your training, within your nutrition, within your lifestyle? And what active steps can you take to improve that at this stage? So that in a nutshell is us talking about progression, and if your progression stalls. So if you've got any questions at all, drop me a message, and I can pick up on those and help you out if anything, if you've got any questions. Thank you. Have a lovely